The applicant. First, are you our sort of person? Do you wear a glass eye, false teeth, or a crutch, a brace or a hook, rubber breasts or a rubber crotch, stitches to show something's missing? No, no. Then how can we give you a thing? Stop crying. Open your hand. Empty? Empty. Here is a hand to fill it and willing to bring teacups and roll away headaches and do whatever you tell it. Will you marry it? It is guaranteed to thumb shut your eyes at the end and dissolve of sorrow. We make new stock from the salt. I notice you are stark naked. How about this suit? Black and stiff, but not a bad fit. Will you marry it? It is waterproof, shatterproof, proof against fire and bombs through the roof. Believe me, they'll bury you in it. Now your head, excuse me, is empty. I have the ticket for that. Come here, sweetie, out of the closet. Well, what do you think of that? Naked as paper to start, but in 25 years she'll be silver, in 50, gold. A living doll everywhere you look. It can sew, it can cook, it can talk, talk, talk. It works. There is nothing wrong with it. You have a hole, it's a poultice. You have an eye, it's an image. My boy, it's your last resort. Will you marry it, marry it, marry it?
To start off the analysis of the poem, we're going to look at the literal meaning and theme. So the theme of this poem is gender stereotypes as well as the objectification of women. Now, the subject that is being interviewed in this poem is a male who is applying for something. Now, as the poem goes on, we can see that the man is applying for a wife, and the woman is being referred to as an object through the use of the pronoun it. It, also known as the woman, can sew, cook, talk, and the poem refers to it as being perfect. It says that it will cure the male's headaches and live to serve the male, in other words, doing whatever the male applicant wants. Now, we can connect this to the idea of marriage and how women seem to serve men, especially during the time which was about the 1960s. Now, the way the author objectifies women by using the pronoun it really shows the theme of gender stereotypes and how women are seen as the ones that are simply meant to serve the men, and how oftentimes women are objectified and not given proper acknowledgement. Now, the unknown vocabulary word in this poem would be poultice, which can be found in line 37, and a poultice is like a soft material applied to the body to relieve soreness and inflammation, and it's kept in place with a cloth. So the title of the poem, of course, is The Applicant, and when first reading the title, one would be likely to infer that the poem will be talking about an applicant for something like a job, and this inference is correct. However, after reading the poem, you realize that there is more to the title than just a simple interview. So the title, The Applicant, actually refers to a male subject who is applying for a wife, and there is a job interview of sorts taking place, and we can see this because the poem begins by asking, first of all, are you our kind of person? And then following that question up with other questions that are directed at the applicant and different aspects of the applicant. However, as the poem goes on, we see that it is not actually an interview for a job, it is an application for a wife, and this shows how sometimes a title can only give us part of the picture of what a poem will be about, and so that's why it is important to combine our inferences about what the title means with the actual meaning that is derived from reading the poem itself.
The tone in this poem can definitely be considered satirical, because Sylvia Plath is criticizing the gender roles, and doing so in a mocking manner, which leads to a very satirical tone. Because of the mocking manner in which Sylvia Plath discusses the topic, the tone could also be considered sarcastic. The tone can also be considered angry, because Plath is angry about the gender roles, and throughout the poem she appears to be commenting on the gender roles. However, she is also commenting on the way that marriage has no true meaning to it, and women are just used as a trophy, which makes her angry. The poem contains 8 stanzas, with 5 verses each, making them quintets, and leading to a total of 40 verses in the poem. The verses vary in the number of words. However, each verse tends to have somewhere between 3 to 6 lines. The poem has various enjambments. Many of the phrases are divided between verses or even between stanzas. This is a deliberate division by the author, possibly to bring emphasis to certain parts of the message.
There is no rigid rhyme scheme in this poem. However, that does not mean that there is no rhyme within the poem. For example, in lines 23 to 24, it is waterproof, shatterproof, proof, against fire and bombs through the roof. Here we can see the words proof and roof rhyme. The enjambments make an interesting rhythm in the poem as well, as can be heard from the reading. The continuous sentences make the rhythm constant, and there tends to be no pauses at line breaks. As can be seen in lines 10 through 13, it can be seen how one complete idea is divided into various parts. Empty, empty. Here is a hand, to fill it and willing to bring teacups and roll away headaches and do whatever you tell it. The language and imagery implemented by Plath in the poem is very evocative, strongly related to the themes of marriage and gender roles. With the poem describing the woman in question using the pronoun it dehumanizes the woman and adds to the harsh tone of the poem. It can also be noted that the man is constantly referred to as you, making it seem like the man is more important in this transaction, especially considering that it sounds like the man is being accepted for a product. There are also many rhetorical questions asked by the speaker, indicating the use of sarcasm and irony, enhancing the presence of satire. The images of the poem are unsettling, creating discomfort in the reader as the act of marriage is reduced to a transaction, which seems to be a common theme in Plath's works. Some of the most powerful images in the poem can be found in the first verses, where the narrator is asking the interviewee whether he is missing an eye, teeth, or has a crutch or hook, which leads to the readers picturing these missing parts. Alliteration is also implemented in the line, stitches to show something's missing, which further adds to the auditory aspect of the poem. In line 17 it states, and dissolve of sorrow, which is a hyperbole, which adds to the idea of the woman being unable to live without the man, as once he dies she will only dissolve of sorrow. This adds to the theme of gender stereotypes. Repetition can also be seen throughout the poem, such as in line 6 where it says, no, no, or in line 10 where it states, empty, empty. Line 35, it can talk, 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 and the final line, will you marry it, marry it, marry it. These words that are repeated highlight the role of men and women. The repetition of the word empty shows how a man is nothing if their ring finger is empty, and the repetition of talk shows how women were seen as just machines that talked a lot. The final line of the poem reminds the reader that women are objects through the use of it, and makes sure we know women are only necessary for marriage.